Greetings, humans from planet Earth. I have a challenge for all of you. Stay awake for the next 15 minutes. Firstly, little thought experiment. You stand before 3 doors. Going through the first door lets you live until you're 30. Going through the second lets you live until you're 50. And the third door grants you life until the ripe old age of 83 2/3. Hands up for the first door. Hands up for the second door. Concerning. Now, hands up for the third and final door. Phew, y'all are normal humans. All right. You know, I agree. I would prefer to live a good, long life as well. Indeed, that has always been one of the most ambitious goals of humanity. And I would like to present to you one of such ambitious individuals called Qin Shi Huang. He was the first emperor of China. He was also obsessed with the idea of immortality. Scores of alchemists came to him with everything, concoctions made from the light of the morning star, the dew of the ginkgo leaf, and the urine of a young child, all claiming to have found the key to immortal life. One day, Qin Shi Huang was very angry because his decades-long search for the key to living forever has turned up with nothing. On that fateful day, Qin Shi Huang was given a small jade vial, and he was told that this, at long last, was the secret to living forever. So he took a sip, and after a few days, he fell sick and kicked the bucket. Turns out, he got mercury poisoning from whatever the heck he drank. Ironically, he met his demise in his search for immortality. Today in the 21st century, we found some slightly more effective ways of prolonging life than drinking random liquids. But the goal remains the same: live as long as you physically can. Hundreds of years back, the question was, could you live forever? Today, medical technology advances at an exponential rate. There are companies that offer to freeze your body in liquid nitrogen for a truly criminal price of $200,000, so that when the technology develops for you to be reawakened, you can be kept alive truly indefinitely. Sounds cool, also sounds too close to zombification for my comfort. But there's also the idea of uploading your mind to a supercomputer, so you don't even need your body to exist. How cool is that? So very soon, maybe even within our lifetimes, the question becomes, should you live forever? After all, we have so many hopes to chase and dreams to pursue and opportunities that we wish to one day grasp, that most of us do not want to be limited by our years. The prospect that one day, all of our hopes and dreams and passions and possessions and family and friends, even ourselves, just fade away into nothing. That's not a prospect that we like to contemplate. We humans have been scared, to death by death ever since we've known what it was. Have you ever wondered why most major religions have some kind of life after death to them? Like heaven for Christianity, rebirth for Hinduism, reincarnation for Buddhism, and the afterlife for ancient Egyptian religions. So you really can't blame us people for being really scared of the end to our journeys. And of course, we want family and friends to stay with us, as few things outweigh the pain of losing a loved one. Friends, I would like to tell you a little story. Last Halloween, my beloved hamster, Mr. Nibbles, who was always a very little hyper-energetic little guy, became lethargic and stiff. He showed little interest in even his favorite treats. His bright and shiny eyes, always so full of mischief and curiosity, closed for the last time. That night, Mr. Nibble slipped away in his sleep. I cried. In that moment, how I wish he could have stayed with me for even a day longer, for a year longer, for the rest of time. But Mr. Nibbles is a hamster. And hamsters just aren't meant to live that long. Even if we somehow kept him physically alive forever, he can't enjoy life as much. He cannot, for instance, run on that hamster wheel of his for miles or miles, or stuff his face with pieces of apple, as if the fate of the universe itself depends on it. Because yeah, that's what hamsters do. Because he would decline with age. Of course, seniors can do just as much with their life as youth could. But when their time comes, they peacefully fade away into eternal slumber. So we must ask ourselves, should we really keep someone alive forever while barring them from enjoying life to the fullest? Medical technology is advancing at breakneck speed. This beautiful chart shows the duration of an average human life from the Industrial Revolution to the present. As you can see, in a mere 2 centuries, we've managed to up the average human lifetime from under 30-something to over 70. The average human is now living longer and healthier lives than ever before. What wonderful news! But imagine if no one were to ever die. Well, first off, the entirety of the funerary industry instantly goes out of business, which is detrimental to the economy. Aside from that, there's a future imagined by a book called To Be or Not to Be. And overpopulation becomes a huge issue because, as one of the characters put it, without population control, humans would now be packed onto the surface of this old planet like droplets on a blackberry. In that world, parents couldn't have children unless they found a volunteer to die, or the Earth-limited resources would be drained by the overflowing human population. Probably sounds a bit far-fetched, but just look at the Earth today. Now imagine nobody ever dies. There's also the concept of uploading our minds to a supercomputer so we can exist indefinitely in a digital space. Wow, so cool, right? So is this it? Our magical fix-all solution? Now, before you answer that question, something y'all should know about me. I am a huge biology geek. It's all I ever talk about. And there's something really, really cool that lives at the bottom of our oceans. Ladies and gentlemen, Pteratopsis dohrnii. In a nutshell, this is a blob of jelly, barely visible to the naked eye. It hasn't got a heart, lungs, eyes, bones, or a brain. And it's barely classified as an animal. So not interesting. Until I point out to you that this is the infamous immortal jellyfish. Miraculously, it can't die, and it can reverse its aging to its juvenile stage. Imagine the amount of anti-wrinkle cream that wouldn't be produced if this were to happen to us. What a relief that we couldn't do that, right? Now, Pteratopsis dohrnii can live forever. But the most important thing it ever does is eat small bits of food and float around. It cannot reflect on the past, enjoy the present, dream of the future, or feel emotion or think creatively or do anything except for exist. Its life's got little meaning, at least from our human standpoint. So my friends, what do we prioritize? A long life or a meaningful one? Here is yet another little story for you. There's this little child named Jerry who was gifted a watch from his dad on his 10th birthday. And his dad told him, "Son, this watch has a magical crystal inside of it so that it always counts down the time until the end of your life." Obviously, Jerry was a little scared, but he put on the watch nonetheless, checks it often, and he made the most out of each and every day, and he was never really scared. He went on to become a successful musician, and he got the cutest little pupper named Floofy, because all happily ever afters, by law, must include a dog. When the watch began its final countdown, all of Jerry's loved ones were gathered close. He played his favorite song for the last time. 5. He hugged his best friend, his guitarist, and his confidant. 4. He patted Floofy on her head. 3. He planted one last kiss on the lips of his beloved wife. 2. He smiled, leaned back, and closed his bright eyes. 1. Seconds pass. The minutes crawled by. And Jerry was perfectly alive and well. And instead of being so happy that he was alive, he felt true fear in more than half a century. Jerry owed the success of his life to that watch, which was actually a very ordinary thing that didn't have a magical crystal inside of it. But that watch gave him the sense of urgency and pressure that drove him to seize each day and succeed. Well, you and I haven't got a cool life measuring watch like Jerry does, at least that I know of. So we do things when there's a deadline to meet. But when the math teacher isn't breathing down our necks to just submit that diagram or else, we do this fun little thing called procrastination. So we get around to things that have a deadline attached to them. But what about spending time with family, trying harder in life, or even just testing out that recipe you found online that just looks so delicious? Well, we don't get around to those things. There's no deadline, there's no worry, and there's no pressure. But these things do have a deadline attached to them. Life itself has a deadline. There are a myriad of great people out there who are fighting to make the most out of each and every day. Terry Fox, who crossed the Rainbow Bridge at 22 years old, ran a marathon of hope that has to date raised $800 million for cancer research. Anne Frank, who died in a Nazi concentration camp, left behind a diary that became the most renowned documentation of the Holocaust. And you haven't got to be a world-famous star to seize every day either. One of my friends is legally blind, but she greets each and every day with an enviably upbeat attitude and a smile. Thing is, the prospect of passing away is very distant for most of us because we're young and spry and we got more pressing things to be concerned over. Intuitively, mortality seems terrifying, restrictive, to be avoided at all costs. But what it's really doing is pushing us to live life while we still can. One last thing to show you. This is a life calendar, which I plagiarized straight out of another, way more famous TED Talk called Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. This depicts the entirety of a human life, a 90-year-old human life, in months. What our ancestors going back thousands of years have always wanted was to endlessly extend this calendar, make infinitely more of these precious little circles. But maybe many more of these circles isn't such a great thing. Certainly not as great as filling each and every one of your limited circles with happiness and meaning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.